So I've started with a stick of wood plain to thickness. And what we've done, we've glued on some wings either side. By gluing on 2 wings either side of the headstock to build up the width. That way the sides are still parallel, so we don't have to taper anything with this instrument because the neck is the same all the way up. I've also glued on a backing piece of wood. This isn't 100% necessary. It's just something I wanted to do for extra strength, really. It can be a decorative element if you wish. This is just an example of a cigar box with my paddle neck, 1-piece neck. This is a traditional cigar box style instrument. The neck carries right through the body, right to the end. It's attached to the end. This is a blank I've started to build. This uses the Fender style paddle headstock. It's the same 20-inch scale as the 4-string and the 3-string model I build. For this example, I'm using tulip poplar wood. This will work really well in maple. I've made this just slightly wider, 33 millimeters. I've got a complete video of how to lay out the frets, and I'm going to link to that in the description. You'll use the chart here, and you always start from the 0 fret. So when you're measuring each fret, you're going to measure to the 1st fret, and then you go up to the 0 fret. The 0 fret is always the place you start from when you're measuring the frets. So use the chart for the scale length, and you measure to the 1st fret, then you go back to the 0 fret, and you measure to the 2nd fret, you measure to the 3rd, you measure to the 4th, and you keep on going until you finish mark out all the frets. And then what you need to do is to do double checking. So you check the width of every fret to make sure it's the same. And you do that before you do any cutting of the slots. I have a video that's especially for cutting slots by hand, which I will link to in the description or in the QR code in the book. So of all the instruments to make, this is probably the quickest to build. Once you've built the neck, you've done the most complicated part of the element if you're using an existing cigar box. Now, one of the finer details that you have to take account of is we want some back angle. We want the neck to tilt slightly back to give us a little bit of height for the bridge. So if you noticed here that there's a very slight taper, around about 12 down to 9 on this example, but it's going to be different to every cigar box you make depending on the thickness of the wood. So the box that I've chosen has a very thick top. So I've adapted for that in the measurements, and that's the same one in the drawings. Because we're using an existing box and we're using a traditional cigar box neck, this is the easiest one of the 3 instruments in the book to build. This instrument will sound the same when plugged into an amplifier. It doesn't have maybe some of the bass notes acoustically, but this will still be a great playing instrument. Set up exactly the same as all the other instruments. It does mean you can adapt. If you find a different size box, you can make the neck longer, make the neck shorter. You can adapt the instrument to the items that you can find. Same for the neck. Whatever stick you find to use, you can adapt it to that. This is a 4-string. You can make this as a 3-string or however many strings you'd like. Just bear in mind that the stick bears all the load. So more than 4 strings, you're going to start to need to think about reinforcement in the neck. You can use a separate fingerboard if you wish, or you can use a 1-piece neck as I've done on this example. If there's anything missing in the book or the download that I've not covered, I can film some videos, extra videos if there are needed, or drop me an email and I'll do my best to help you.